90% plus black, probably 10 to 15% Hispanic. Okay? I'd go to coach with me, I'm the only white guy in the room. Right? But here's the reality. Am I a minority? In that room, yeah. But I'm still part of majority culture. Right? It's still not the same thing. Okay? Now, and the reality is that I had opportunities that a lot of kids growing up in those neighborhoods didn't have. And this is where the systemic thing comes in. So we talk about systemic issues. And the reality is that there are some systemic issues. Now, I tend to disagree with the way a lot of it's characterized, but here's what I want us to think about as Christians. I'm getting ready in a couple of weeks to go and talk to a bunch of potential church planters, some interns for a church planting thing. I'm going to talk to them and just about experiences in urban ministry. One of the things that I think is true, that we as Christians, we have a desire to be involved in some things so long as it doesn't cost us too much. So long as it doesn't make me like actually have to be uncomfortable or be uncomfortable for very long. All right, so oftentimes those.
Once you do that, throw the money or your little bit of time at something,
Yeah.
and you help temporarily, but when you actually have to get involved, and you have to get involved,
Yeah.
and it costs you real time and real
Yeah.
energy, then I
Yeah.
think that's the difference. And so we're about the fix.
Yeah.
We're about the real fix.
We are tempted, and again, part of this, and again, I want to challenge your thinking on this. All right, so so when I was pastoring that church in Rouge, I lived there, and I've said often, early on it wasn't intentional. They had a house, I needed a place to live. I was fresh out of seminary, I lived there. I found out very quickly that my living in that community made a difference. That people like, you live here? I was one of them. I got a friend planted a church up in Detroit, central Detroit, Joy, right, just a little bit from where the riots in '68 started, a couple blocks away from there. Started a church up there. You want to attend that church, you got to live there. Right? I'm pretty sure that if one of you went up and said, hey, we want to be a member of your church, the answer's probably going to be no. Why? Because you got to be part of it. But boy, that's a huge commitment. That's a different ballgame up there. Right? Not better word, just different. Now, here's my challenge to us is we have to think about these things differently than we typically do, because we come at it from this middle-class perspective, and that's the bulk of our church is upper middle class. Like it or not, that's who we are. Okay? And in a large sense, that's a lot of our community. That's a lot of what's around us. Now, we don't have to go very far from here to get different. But here's my challenge for us, and I think this goes to somewhat of maybe what Elaine was bringing up earlier. We are a very rich society. Even in the fact that worldwide, we're obscenely rich. In America, to a large degree, we're still pretty well off. Now, how do we handle that? The needs of the church at Jerusalem. People who had stuff ministered to those who didn't. You need something? You have a need, I have a resource. Okay? You need something, I can help you with it, I'm going to help you with it. One of the things that happened in the early church, again, it was apparently a problem that people would see people in need and say, I see your need, I hope you get some help. Hope you find it. In other words, what James describes as you see somebody, a brother or sister without clothing and in need of daily food, and you say, go in peace, be warmed and filled. And you don't give them what they need. Is that real faith? Do you have real faith? And I think James's point is a question that how can you say you have faith if you don't? How can you if whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how's the love of God abide in him? The Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, out of your deep poverty overflowed a wealth of liberality. There was a giving heart that I see people need. I'm willing to meet those needs. I testify that according to their ability and beyond their ability, they gave of their own accord, begging us with much urging for the favor of participation and support of the saints. I had a conversation recently about the money we were spending at them, and somebody questioned me about it, and it wasn't an entirely negative conversation. I would never say who this conversation was, but I use it for this. Somebody questioned, well, why aren't we spending that money here? And I said, in the last 2 years, we've spent about $200,000 on this building. And that doesn't include the $250,000 or almost $300,000 that insurance paid for the roof. All right, we have spent a lot of money here, but we need to have an outward view to give to others. And what Tim's trying to do with his building over there is make that building usable for the work of the ministry and kids and different kinds of training ministries, different kinds of discipleship ministries. We want to give as we have opportunity. And we're a rich church. I mean, yeah, would we like to have more? Sure, we'd like to have more. But we're a rich church. We have all kinds of resources, and we're able to help people. We're not hurting. What I want us to think about as we think about these issues, the early church ministered generously. When people had needs, they met needs. It didn't equal everybody. It didn't equal everything out. There were still rich people and poor people. Right? There were still, and remember the whole get back to the slave thing, right? There were still slave owners and slaves in the church. Right? Masters and slaves in the church. Some people are really uncomfortable with that. I think there's a difference in the kind of society at that time that made that a little different than what we typically think of today as slavery. But it was a difference in the church. And the Bible never sets out to say, hey, you got to equal all that. You got to get all the slave owners and the rich people down here and bring all the other people up. The Bible never sets out to do that. That's not a mandate for us. But what is a mandate for us is to look at people in need and serve them and try to help them in their needs. While we have opportunity, Galatians says, let us do good to all people, especially those of the household of faith. Now, here's one last component of this, and that is thing that they probably didn't have back then is the government, right? All right, today there are all kinds of resources for people in need. Back then, so we talk about the feeding of the widows. Most widows today have Social Security. They have pensions. They have savings. They have Medicare. They have all kinds of things they can use. That didn't exist back then. So again, that should change to some degree the way we view our responsibilities here. Okay? Again, one of the things that's interesting as you look at the whole societal situation, there are government assistance programs, and a lot of people here, I presume a lot of people here would be really negative about that. Okay? I'm not asking you to testify. All right? I'm just saying that in our general strata of society, there's a lot of people really negative about that. One of the things that we have to think about is how best do we help people, right? I have encouraged people. There are governmental programs available. Go take advantage of them. Go use them. One of the hard parts, again, in society, and if I were king for a day, I'd fix it all. But there are a lot of difficulties. You know, we talk about people, hey, you need to work hard and get yourself off welfare. And how many have heard of the welfare cliff? You know what the welfare cliff is? It's a huge problem. Now, I think there are some steps towards change, but the welfare cliff is, on most welfare programs, once you pass a certain amount of money, you lose that program. So you down here at this income, you can increase your income. The reason it's called a welfare cliff is because once you hit a certain mark, you go to zero on your benefits. So I dealt with people in Rouge who needed the work. They needed the structure of getting up and going to a job every day. You need this structure in your life. But he says, I can't. I make too much money. They take my medical benefits away. And he couldn't get them anywhere else because the job would not pay him enough to make up for that. That's the welfare. So my point all this is say there's a lot of complexities, and I would encourage us not to have really dogmatic opinions about things that are beyond our pay grade. Right? There's a lot of complexities. There's a lot of difficult situations. Here's my encouragement for us. Let us as people, as Christians, live in love towards others. When you see somebody in need and you have opportunity to help that person. Now, again, be careful you don't subsidize. How many you see people standing on street corners? Right? That's hard sometimes. Okay? I told you a story before. I had a guy years ago, he tried to hire one of them. He said, come up here, work for me. And this was midnight. He said, I'll pay you $10 an hour. Come work for me for the day. He said, no, I make $400 a day standing here. Right? Is that helping the problem? Well, it feels good because we gave him a 5. Right? Well, I feel good. I helped him out. Did we? Or did we make the problem worse? Okay. Now, one of the things I think we have to be willing to do is get involved in people's lives. And this goes to what Cinda said a few minutes ago. One of the things that it feels good, here's a $5 bill, buy yourself a burger or a beer. Right? Because, again, there are certain patterns of life. But hey, let me really turn to caring for you. Let me get involved in your life. Yeah, wait a minute, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted the love from arm's length. And one of the things we as Christians have to be willing to do is get involved in people's lives. Okay, now, all that stemmed from this idea in Acts chapter 4 that those with need, those with resources, connected with those with needs. It was primarily in the local church. And what I want to encourage us to do, and my heartbeat for this church, I don't want us to be a church of refined, mature Christians. Okay? I want us to be a place where people are constantly coming in, getting to know Christ. They're coming from hard situations in life, and you see a person and you say, hey, I'm going to disciple that person. I'm going to help that person. I'm going to bring them along the road of discipleship. Clean churches are typically not growing churches. And what we're going to find, we start, reaching more people, we're going to get our hands dirty in ministry. But we have to love people enough to do it. And refuse to sit in harsh judgment on, hey, you just need to clean yourself up. And we've got to love people. And part of that's going to be, listen, I have a resource, I can meet a need. I have more than I need, I can give to somebody else. Not open-ended, not without careful consideration, with a view towards a long-term solution. Me giving you a bunch of money every week is not going to solve your unemployment problem. And some of you might need a job. All right, but we want to love, the way that brings long-term results. Okay. Now, Bonnie.
I just want to, I don't know, maybe help them understand something. I work in the pregnancy center. They're told at the beginning that we are a faith-based,
Yes.
relational ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone that comes in, the first week that the first time that they come, we tell them we want to meet your immediate needs.
Yeah.
Right now, that's what Christ said when he died at 5,000. We want to meet your immediate needs. And when you come back now, an appointment is needed, and we tell them what is expected of them. You can't just come in and get your, you have an appointment, you're with us for a half hour to 45 minutes so that we can have a conversation.
Right.
I have one girl that, I'm shocked, this would have been her 7th week in a row coming back. I still haven't had the opportunity to share the gospel with her, but I gave her some different options. And she said, no, I want to come. Yes, the stuff is nice and I enjoy getting the stuff, but I like talking to you.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to build it. I don't care what the program is.
Yeah.
You're going to have people on both spectrums where they
Yeah.
come in just to take
Right.
advantage of. That's trying to become them a God.
Right. And there is an element of it is anytime you're involved in people's lives, you're going to get taken advantage of, right? It's going to be messy, and there's going to be some hard choices. And part of the hard choices is how do we move people towards wholeness, both as a human and as Christians. So again, and this is where I think we as people, and the church-Christian distinctions, we as church, we're about making disciples, right? I want to make disciples of inside the church. But also understand that there are relationships I might have outside the church where I'm invested in somebody for academic, to help them with their schooling, to help them get an education. That's not strictly you got to read the Bible with me first and then I'll help you with this. It's a different, so a lot of relationships are like that, and that's part of the pregnancy center is building that relationships with the goal of hopefully introducing them to Christ. Right, but there's always going to be hard things. I mean, there are always hard choices. Bob?
I think the issue for the church is to make sure that we're not violating other biblical principles by helping somebody.
Yeah.
You can feed two men. You might be helping somebody, but you might be enabling the
Right.
other one.
Right.
And something that I really appreciate about our church, like for example on this vote Sunday, you tell me that Pastor Discerns has been there. You tell me the deacons have recommended this. That tells me that there's been an investment in accountability.
Yeah.
And that's the issue for the church. I mean, it's just hard to say we're going to do this or we're going to do that. We could be enabling people.
Right. There are a lot of really hard. We've gone long, and I apologize. There are a lot of hard issues. Okay, a lot of hard issues. I think the biblical emphasis on the image of God in man, that every single person has dignity. Every single person is vested with the image of God. From the addict who is on the brink of death because he is so enslaved to alcohol or drugs, to the richest person who you think has no needs in the world, but his life is completely empty, to the middle class person who feels, man, I'm just struggling to make ends meet because I'm making 3 car payments and a house payment and the vacation and the boat payment. All right. I mean, there is a whole lot of complexity to life, and what I would love us to do, and this is what I think part of the New Testament is get involved. Everything can't be dealt with from a corporate level. We just throw money at it. What happens when we start throwing relational strength into it? What happens when we start getting involved in people's lives? And yeah, it's going to be dirty. It's going to be ugly. You're going to find out things you wish you didn't know that are going to keep you up at night while they sleep because they're used to it, and you find this out, and you're like, man, I just right? You're going to be devastated by it.
I think that's why Jesus talked about in the Bible over 500 times about money.
Mm-hmm.
You can look where even in the last 50 years within our world, just how the monetary value,
Right.
like you say, we spent $200,000 or $300,000 50
Yeah.
years ago back in
Yeah. Right.
how the money,
Yeah.
monetary value
Yeah.
is just
It's changed. Right.
billions and trillions.
So my heartbeat for you and for us and for me is be willing to invest in people. Not just in corporate structures. Hey, let's have a church program with a food pantry. We'll set aside a room. Man, if we only had a room right here in the middle of the building where we could stock it with food, right? Wouldn't that have been great? And we just have food. And so many of us, we want to participate in ministry by doing things that somebody else can do. Hey, you want to minister? Let me give you $50 and you go take care of it, instead of us personally investing and saying, here's somebody, I'm going to get involved in their lives. All right? So love people, get involved in people, and get to know them and start serving people. All right? I know this has been long, a little bit rambling tonight, a little bit more than I intended it to be, but hopefully it's been challenging for us to think about the life and the society that we live in. Again, remember, not everybody has what we have. And there's a whole different world out there. Get to know people and start loving them for the sake of Jesus. Start loving them because they're made in the image of God. I'm going to pray. Glad to take any questions afterwards if you greatly trouble what I said, or you just want to, I don't know, whatever. You want to talk afterwards, I'm here. Let's pray. Father, you have been so kind to us. You've invested your image in us, in every single person. Help us to love people. Give us wisdom about how to interact with people. Give us a willingness to get our hands dirty in the lives of others, that we may, those of us with resources, may find ways to meet those with needs. Cause us to see people made in your image as those for whom you care, and therefore those for whom we should care. Build us up for your glory as we follow Christ. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Have a great night. See you Sunday.